Your company has a spreadsheet with your name on it, right now, and they've calculated exactly how much to pay you, not based on your value, based on the minimum needed to keep you trapped. I'm Henry Ford, and I'm about to show you the exact formula they're using against you. Most men work 40 years and retire broke. Not because they're lazy, not because they're stupid, because they never understood the game. There's a spreadsheet in your HR department. On that spreadsheet is a number. That number is your retention threshold. It's the exact amount they need to pay you so you can afford your bills but can't afford to leave. They call it total compensation planning. I call it a trap. And here's how it works. They look at the average rent in your area, the average cost of living, the average family expenses. They know how much it costs you to live. Then they do the math. What's the minimum we can pay this person so they keep showing up but can't save enough to quit? That number becomes your salary, not based on what you're worth, based on what keeps you dependent. If you're making 30% above your survival costs, you stay. You're comfortable enough not to look elsewhere. If you're making 50% above your costs, you start having options. You become dangerous. So they keep you between 30 and 40%, forever. You can pay your bills, you can't leave. Perfect. And every time you get close to that 50% mark where you might walk away, suddenly there's no budget for raises. Not this quarter, maybe next year. We'll revisit at your review. It's calculated, every single time. I'm going to show you exactly how this trap works, how it's kept millions of men stuck their entire lives, and more importantly, how to break out of it before it's too late. Listen carefully, because what I'm about to tell you contradicts everything you've been taught, everything your parents told you, everything your teachers said, everything society promised you. You were told to go to school, get good grades, find a stable job, work hard, be loyal, and you'll be taken care of. That's the promise. That's the deal. Except it's a lie. And I'm going to prove it to you. Not with theory, not with opinion, with facts, with math, with the exact calculations companies use to keep you trapped. By the end of this, you'll understand why your father worked 40 years and retired tired. Why your neighbor who's been at the same company for 15 years still worries about money. Why hard work alone will never be enough. And why 95 out of every 100 men will end up broke, no matter how hard they work. But you're going to be different, because you're going to see the game. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. Once you understand how it works, you can stop playing by their rules and start playing by yours. So stay with me. Every single word matters. Every principle I'm about to share can change your life. But only if you listen. Only if you understand. Only if you act. And action starts with understanding the real trap, not the obvious one, the one nobody talks about. Your raises aren't rewards, they're adjustments. Let me explain exactly what I mean. Every year, things get more expensive. Rent goes up, food costs more, gas prices increase, insurance gets higher. This is inflation. Your company tracks it. They know exactly how much more expensive your life got this year. And when they give you a raise, they're not giving you more money. They're adjusting your pay so you stay in that same 30 to 40% zone above survival. You think you're moving forward. You're not. You're running in place. And they know it. Do this right now. Think about your last 3 raises. Add them up. Let's say you got 3% last year, 2.5% the year before, 3.5% before that. That's about 9% total over 3 years. Now think about how much your expenses increased in that same time. How much more are you paying for rent, for food, for everything? If you're honest, your expenses probably went up 12%, maybe 15%, which means your raises didn't even keep up with your costs. You got raises and got poorer. That's not an accident. That's the system working exactly as designed. Think of it like a treadmill. You're running, you're sweating, you're working hard. But the belt under your feet is moving at the exact same speed you're running, so you stay in the same spot. You never actually move forward, you just get tired. That's what a salary does. It keeps you moving without getting anywhere. And the longer you stay on that treadmill, the harder it becomes to step off. Here's what makes this even more calculated. Every year you stay, your life gets bigger. You start with a small apartment. Then you get a nicer place. Then you buy a house. You start with an old car. Then you finance a newer one. You're single. Then you get married. Then you have kids. Each of these additions to your life requires more money. And every time your expenses go up, you become more dependent on that paycheck. You become more trapped. And the company knows this. They're counting on it. At 25, you could quit tomorrow and figure it out. You've got nothing to lose. At 35, with a mortgage and 2 kids, you're stuck. You can't take risks now. You've got too much to lose. At 45, you're not even thinking about leaving anymore. You're just trying to survive until retirement. And they planned it that way. Not because they're evil, but because it's good business. An employee who can't leave is an employee who can't negotiate. An employee who's dependent is an employee who accepts whatever you give them. An employee who's trapped is an employee who works harder out of fear. That's the model, and it works. It's been working for 100 years. It'll keep working for the next 100 unless you understand what's happening and do something about it. Now let me show you something that's going to make you angry. Pull out your pay stubs from the last 5 years if you have them. Look at your salary progression. Year 1 to year 2. Year 2 to year 3. Keep going. For most people, you'll see a pattern. Small increases every year. 2 to 4% usually. Feels like progress. Feels like you're being rewarded. Now do this. Google inflation rates for those same years. Write them down next to your raises. Compare them. What do you notice? In most cases, your raises barely kept up with inflation. Some years they didn't keep up at all. Which means in real terms, accounting for what things actually cost, you didn't get a raise. You got an adjustment to keep you at the same level. But it feels like a raise. It looks like a raise. They call it a raise. So you think you're doing well. You think you're advancing. You think your hard work is paying off. But the math tells a different story. The math says you're running in place. And if you're running in place at 30, you'll be running in place at 40, at 50, at 60, until you're too old to run anymore. Then what? Then you hope Social Security covers your bills. Then you hope your savings, if you have any, last long enough. Then you hope you don't live too long because you can't afford to. That's the path you're on right now. That's where the treadmill leads. And nobody told you this because the system needs you on that treadmill. The system needs you running in place, thinking you're moving forward, never questioning why you're not getting anywhere. But the raises are just the surface. The real trap is deeper. The real trap is what you're actually selling. Right now you're selling your time. You go to work. You trade hours for dollars. 8 hours, 10 hours, sometimes 12. And at the end of the week you get paid. Seems fair, right? It's not. Because time is the one thing you can't make more of. You can make more money. You can't make more time. Every hour you sell is gone forever. You can't get it back. You can't buy it back. It's just gone. And that means your income is capped. You can only make as much money as you can sell hours. If you make $30 an hour and work 40 hours a week, you make $1,200. Want to make more? Work more hours. But there's a limit. You only have 24 hours in a day. You need to sleep, you need to eat, you need to live. So maybe you can work 60 hours, maybe 70 if you destroy your health. But that's the ceiling. That's as high as you can go. And that's not a path to wealth. That's a path to exhaustion. Let me tell you what this looks like in practice. Most of your time belongs to your job, your best hours, your best energy, 8 hours minimum. Then you commute. That's another hour or two. Then you get home and you're exhausted. You've got nothing left. You watch TV, you scroll your phone, you collapse into bed. And the next day you do it again, week after week, year after year, decade after decade. Think about yesterday. Go hour by hour. Where did your time go? You woke up, got ready, commuted, worked 8 or 10 hours, commuted back, made dinner, maybe watched something, maybe scrolled your phone, went to bed. Now ask yourself this: how many of those hours were actually yours? How many built something you own? How many moved you toward freedom? If you're honest, almost none, maybe 0. Your job took your best hours, the hours when you have energy, when you can focus, when you can think clearly. And what did they give you back? Your worst hours, when you're depleted, when you're tired, when you can barely function. And in those depleted hours, you're supposed to build your future. You're supposed to start that business, learn that skill, create that thing. It's impossible. That's the design. They take your prime hours when you could actually build something, and they give you back your exhausted hours when you can't do anything productive. So you keep showing up. Keep trading your best hours for their money. Keep postponing your dreams until someday. And someday never comes. Because every year that passes, you get more tired, more responsibilities, less energy, less time. Until one day you wake up at 55 and realize you spent your entire life building someone else's fortune, and you have nothing of your own. Not because you didn't work hard, but because you sold all your time to someone else. And time was the one thing you needed to build with. Here's what makes this even worse. Your time is worth more than they're paying you. Way more. Think about what you do at your job. What value do you create? If you're in sales, maybe you bring in $500,000 a year in revenue, and they pay you $60,000. If you're in production, maybe you help produce products worth millions, and they pay you $45,000. If you're in management, maybe you oversee projects worth tens of millions, and they pay you $90,000. See the pattern? The value you create is always more, often much more, than what you're paid. That's how companies make profit. They pay you less than the value you produce. The difference is their profit. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's how business works. But understand what it means. It means your time is worth more than you're getting for it. It means you're capable of creating more value than your salary reflects. It means if you were creating that value for yourself instead of for them, you'd make more money. A lot more. But you can't, because you sold all your time. You sold your best hours, your best energy, your best years. And once you sell them, they're gone. You can't use them to build something of your own. You can't use them to create value you keep. You can't use them to build wealth. They're just gone. And in exchange, you got a paycheck that barely keeps up with inflation. That's the trade. That's what you agreed to. And that's why you'll work until 65 with nothing. Now let me show you the cage they build around you. Benefits, health insurance, retirement matching, paid time off, dental, vision, life insurance. These sound good, right? These sound like they're taking care of you. They're not. These are chains, comfortable chains, but chains nonetheless. Here's how it works. They give you benefits you can't afford to lose, especially health insurance, especially if you have a family. Your wife needs coverage. Your kids need coverage. You need coverage. And health insurance on your own is expensive, really expensive. So you can't leave, even if you want to, even if you hate your job, even if you have a better opportunity. Because walking away means losing the insurance, and you can't risk that. What if someone gets sick? What if there's an emergency? What if something happens? So you stay, not because you want to, because you're afraid of what happens if you leave. That's not freedom, that's prison. A comfortable prison, but prison nonetheless. Then there's the 401k match. Company matches 3% of your salary. Free money, right? Except it's not free. Because now you've got money locked up in an account you can't touch until you're 59 and a half. And if you leave the company, you might lose the unvested portion. So you stay. A few more years to get fully vested. Then a few more. Then a few more. And before you know it, you've been there 20 years. And that 401k, that thing that was supposed to give you freedom in retirement, was actually the chain that kept you trapped for 2 decades. Think of benefits like this. Imagine you're a bird in a cage, but the cage is comfortable. There's food, there's water, there's everything you need to survive. The cage is even pretty big. You can move around, you can fly from one side to the other. It almost feels like freedom. But here's the thing. The door is open. You could leave any time you want, but you don't. Because outside the cage, you'd have to find your own food, your own water, your own shelter. It's uncertain out there. It's risky. It's scary. So you stay in the cage, where it's safe, where it's predictable, where everything is provided for you. And every year you stay, the cage becomes more comfortable. Better food, better perch, better everything. And every year you stay, the idea of leaving becomes more terrifying. Until one day, you realize you're not staying because the cage is good. You're staying because you're afraid of what's outside. That's what benefits do. They make the cage comfortable enough that you forget it's a cage. They make dependency feel like security. They make being trapped feel like being taken care of. And by the time you realize what happened, it's too late. You're too deep in, too dependent, too afraid to leave. And that's exactly what they want. An employee who can't leave is an employee who can't negotiate, can't demand more, can't walk away when they're being underpaid or mistreated. You're stuck. And you did it to yourself. You walked into the cage, you stayed in the cage, you got comfortable in the cage, and now the door might as well be locked because you're too afraid to walk through it. Here's a question I want you to really think about. What would you do if you weren't afraid? Seriously. If fear wasn't a factor. If you weren't worried about losing health insurance. If you weren't worried about the 401k. If you weren't worried about the steady paycheck. What would you do? Would you quit your job? Would you start that business you've been thinking about for 5 years? Would you take that risk? Would you build that thing? Most people never ask themselves this question because they're afraid of the answer. They're afraid they'll realize they've been living in fear. They're afraid they'll see that the cage door is open and they're choosing to stay inside. And that's a painful realization, because it means you're not a victim. You're a volunteer. Nobody's forcing you to stay. You're staying because you're afraid. And as long as you're afraid, you'll never leave. You'll never build anything of your own. You'll never be free. You'll work until 65, and you'll have nothing. Not because you couldn't do better, but because you were too afraid to try. Now let me tell you about loyalty, because this is where the trap gets even more calculated. They expect you to be loyal, show up every day, work hard, don't complain, don't leave, give them your best years, sacrifice for the company, be a team player, and in return they'll take care of you. That's the promise, that's the deal. Except it's a lie, because loyalty only goes one way. You're expected to be loyal to them, but them, they're not loyal to you. They'll let you go the second it makes financial sense. Not because they're evil, not because they hate you, just because it's business. The numbers changed. They don't need you anymore. Or they found someone cheaper. Or they're restructuring. Or they're downsizing. Or they're relocating. Or any one of 100 reasons that have nothing to do with your loyalty, your hard work, or your dedication. You're gone. No hesitation, no guilt. Just business. And here's the worst part. You probably won't even see it coming. You'll show up one day thinking it's a normal day, and they'll call you into a meeting. HR will be there, your boss will be there, they'll have a folder with your name on it, and they'll tell you that your position has been eliminated. They'll thank you for your service. They'll give you a severance package if you're lucky. 2 weeks, maybe a month, and then you're done. Years of loyalty, years of hard work, years of dedication, and it ends with a 20-minute meeting and a box for your desk stuff. But here's what's interesting. When someone leaves a company for a better opportunity, what does the company say? They weren't loyal. They abandoned us. After everything we did for them. The double standard is incredible. They can fire you without a thought, but if you quit, you're a traitor. You're disloyal. You're ungrateful. And this double standard exists for one reason, to make you feel guilty about putting yourself first, to make you think twice before leaving, to keep you trapped even when leaving would be better for you. Your company is not your family. Your boss is not your friend. Your coworkers are not your brothers. Your job is a transaction. You trade time for money, that's it. Nothing more, nothing less. The moment you understand that, the moment you stop thinking of your job as anything more than a transaction, you can start making better decisions. You can start negotiating harder. You can start looking for better opportunities. You can start planning your exit because you understand that loyalty is a one-way street. And the only person who's going to look out for your future is you, not your boss, not your company, not HR. You. And if you don't look out for yourself, nobody will. Let me tell you something that happened at one of my competitors' factories. There was a man who worked there for over 25 years. Started right out of school, worked his way up. Good worker, reliable, loyal, never missed a day. Then the company got bought out. New owners came in. They looked at the numbers. This man was making good money after 25 years of raises. They could hire someone younger for half the cost. So they let him go. Just like that, 25 years, gone. And you know what the worst part was? He never saw it coming. He thought his loyalty protected him. He thought his hard work mattered. He thought the company valued him. But they didn't. They valued the number on the spreadsheet. And when that number didn't work in their favor anymore, he was gone. That man spent the next 2 years looking for work. Nobody wanted to hire someone in their late 40s. He was too old, too expensive, too set in his ways. He eventually found something, making less money than he made 15 years prior. And all that loyalty, all that dedication, all those years of sacrifice, they meant nothing. That's the reality of employment. That's what loyalty gets you. And once you understand this, once you really see it, you can never unsee it. You'll never trust a company again. You'll never give them everything again. You'll never mistake a transaction for a relationship again. And that's good. Because understanding the truth is the first step to doing something different. So here's the fundamental shift you need to make. Stop selling your time. Start building value. What does that mean? It means instead of trading hours for dollars, you create something. You build something. You make something that people want. And you sell that thing. Not your hours. The thing itself. And this doesn't mean you have to quit your job now. I'll tell you in detail later how to organize your life to achieve this. So, when you sell your time, you're limited by how many hours you have. When you sell value, you're limited only by how much value you can create. Let me give you an example from my own life. When I worked at Edison Illuminating Company, I sold my time. I showed up. I worked my shift. They paid me. If I wanted to make more money, I had to work more hours. That's it. That was the only option. But when I started working on my automobile, that was different. I wasn't selling my time anymore. I was building something. And once I built that automobile, I could sell it to someone. Then I could build another one and sell it to someone else. Then I could figure out how to build them faster, more efficiently, better. And suddenly I wasn't limited by my hours anymore. I was limited by how many automobiles I could produce. That's the shift. From time to value, from employee to owner, from trading hours to building assets. And that shift is the difference between working until 65 with nothing and building real wealth. Now you're probably thinking, but I'm not Henry Ford. I can't build automobiles. I don't have a factory. I don't have resources. I don't have connections. I don't have money. You're right. You're not Henry Ford. But you don't need to be. You don't need a factory. You don't need massive resources. You don't need connections or money. You need one thing, an idea. One idea for something people want. Something that solves a problem. Something that makes life easier or better or more convenient. It doesn't have to be revolutionary. It doesn't have to be brilliant. It just has to be useful. And once you have that idea, you start building it. Not someday, not when you have more money, not when you have more time. Now, today, right now, with what you have, where you are. I started building my automobile in a shed behind my house. I didn't have funding, I didn't have a team, I didn't have fancy equipment. I had some tools and an idea. That's it. And I worked on it every night after my shift at Edison. 1 hour, sometimes 2, sometimes more, for years. Most of those years I had nothing to show for it, just failed prototypes and wasted materials. But I kept building, because I understood something. Every hour I spent on my automobile was an investment in my future. Every hour at Edison was just trading time for money. And time that's traded is gone forever. But time that's invested compounds. It builds. It creates something that lasts. Here's what most people don't understand about building something. It's slow at first. Painfully slow. You work for months and see nothing. No money. No results. No progress. Just effort disappearing into what feels like a black hole. And that's when most people quit. 3 months in. 6 months in. Maybe a year. They don't see results fast enough, so they stop. They go back to the safe job, back to trading time for money, back to surviving instead of building. And they never get to see what would have happened if they kept going. Because here's the secret. Building something is like pushing a giant wheel. At first, it barely moves. You push with everything you have and it moves an inch. You push again, another inch. For months, you're pushing this massive wheel and it's barely moving. It feels pointless. It feels like it's not working. It feels like you're wasting your time. But you keep pushing. And slowly the wheel starts moving a little faster. Still slow, but faster than before. And you keep pushing. And it moves a little more, a little easier. And then something happens. The wheel starts moving on its own. You're still pushing, but now it's helping you. Now it's got momentum. Now every push moves it further. And before long, that wheel is spinning so fast you can barely keep up with it. That's compound interest. Not just with money, with effort, with time, with building. The first year I worked on my automobile, I had nothing to show for it. Just drawings and failed attempts. Second year, same thing. Third year, I finally had something that sort of worked. Fourth year, I had a real automobile. Fifth year, I started a company. Sixth year, we produced our first cars for sale. And by year 10, we were producing thousands. But if I'd quit in year 2, nothing. If I'd quit in year 3, nothing. The compound effect only works if you stay long enough to see it. Now let me tell you about something that keeps more people trapped than anything else. Lifestyle. Most people, the moment they start making more money, they spend more money. They get a raise. They move to a nicer apartment. They get a promotion. They buy a nicer car. And every time their income goes up, their expenses go up right along with it. Sometimes faster. And suddenly, even though they're making more money, they have less freedom than before. Because now they need that higher income just to maintain the lifestyle. They can't take risks, can't quit, can't start something new. They're trapped by their own spending. I've seen people making 6 figures who are more trapped than people making 40,000. Why? Because the 6-figure person bought a house they can barely afford, financed 2 nice cars. Their expenses match their income. So even though they make more, they have the same amount of freedom. 0. The $40,000 person lives in a small apartment, drives an old car, keeps expenses low, and saves half their income. They've got freedom. They've got options. That's real wealth. Not how much you make, how much you keep. Not how much you spend, how much you save. Not how successful you look, how free you actually are. Here's what I want you to do. Take out a piece of paper, write down your monthly income after taxes, the real number. Now write down every single expense, rent, car payment, insurance, food, everything. Be completely honest. Add it all up. Subtract your expenses from your income. What's left? That number is your freedom number. That's how much room you have to build. For most people, that number is close to zero or negative. They're spending everything they make. That means they have no freedom, no options, no ability to change anything. If that's you, you need to look at that list of expenses. Really look at it. How many of those things actually make your life better? How many do you actually need? Cable TV you barely watch? Eating out 5 times a week when you could cook? Expensive car when a cheaper one gets you to the same places? Be honest about what adds value and what just drains money. Because every dollar you spend on something that doesn't matter is a dollar you can't use to build something that does. For years after I could afford bigger, I lived small. People thought I was cheap. I was, on purpose. Because every dollar I didn't spend on lifestyle was a dollar I could invest in my business. Every dollar saved was freedom. That's the power of living below your means. It gives you options. It gives you the ability to say no. And the ability to say no is worth more than any house, any car, anything. Live small, save big. Build wealth, not lifestyle. Now I'm going to give you the most important principle in this entire talk. The 1 hour rule. Every single day you need to protect 1 hour. 1 hour that belongs to you. Not your job, not your boss, not your family, not your friends. You. 1 hour where you work on something you're building, something you own, something that's yours. Before work, after work, during lunch, early morning, late night. Doesn't matter when. But every single day, without exception, you take 1 hour and you build. What do you build? Something that creates value, something people want, something that solves a problem. You don't need a perfect idea. You don't need $1 million concept. You need one small thing. One thing you can create, make, do, or provide that someone else finds valuable. And you work on it. 1 hour a day, every day. No excuses, no exceptions. In 6 months, you'll have 180 hours invested. In a year, 365 hours. In 2 years, 730 hours. That's almost a full year of work weeks. And at that point, what you've built will be substantial. It might be making money. It might be close to replacing your income. It might be ready to scale. But only if you protect that 1 hour. Only if you treat it like it's sacred. Only if you defend it against everything that tries to steal it. When I was working at Edison, I worked on my automobile every single night. 1 hour minimum, sometimes more, but never less. Even when I was tired, even when I had other things to do, even when it felt pointless. I protected that time, because I understood that time was my future. That hour was the difference between staying trapped at Edison forever and building something of my own. And here's what happened. At first, nothing. For months, I had nothing to show for those hours, just drawings and ideas. Then slowly, I started making progress. A part here, a component there. Small wins that didn't seem to matter, but they added up. After a year, I had rough prototypes. After 2 years, I had something that actually worked. After 3 years, I had an automobile I could show people. And none of that would have happened without protecting that 1 hour every single day. Most people can't do this. They come home from work and they're tired. So they watch TV, they scroll their phone, they do nothing. And they tell themselves they'll start tomorrow. But tomorrow never comes. Because tomorrow they're tired again, and the day after that, and the day after that, and years pass, and they never build anything. Because they never protected the time. They let it slip away, 1 hour at a time, 1 day at a time, until years have passed, and they have nothing to show for it except regret. Don't let that be you. Protect your 1 hour. Treat it like the most important hour of your day, because it is. That's the hour that determines whether you work until 65 with nothing or build something that sets you free. Now let me tell you what to do with that 1 hour. You're going to work on your value creation, your thing, your project, your business, your skill, whatever it is you're building, and you're going to track it. Get a calendar. Mark an X on every day you do your 1 hour. Don't break the chain. Each day you do it, you mark an X. After a week, you've got 7 X's. After a month, you've got 30. After 3 months, you've got 90. And looking at that chain of X's becomes motivating. You don't want to break it. You don't want to see a day without an X. So you do the hour even when you don't feel like it, even when it's hard, even when you're tired, because you don't want to break the chain. This is how you build discipline. Not through motivation, through tracking. Through seeing the proof that you're doing it, day after day, week after week, month after month. And after 6 months, when you look back at that calendar covered in X's, you'll feel something you've never felt before. You'll feel like someone who finishes things, someone who follows through, someone who builds. And that feeling is more valuable than money. Because that feeling is what separates the 5% who succeed from the 95% who give up. The 5% aren't smarter, aren't more talented, aren't luckier. They just don't quit. They protect their hour. They mark their X's. They build their chain. And they never break it. Be one of the 5%. Everything I've told you so far is useless if you don't make a decision. Right now. Today. Not tomorrow. Not next week. Not when you feel ready. Now. Because here's what happens if you don't decide now. You'll go back to work tomorrow. You'll do your job. You'll come home tired. You'll tell yourself you'll start next week, next month, when things calm down, when you have more money, when you have more time, when you feel more prepared. And that day will never come, because there will always be a reason not to start, always an excuse, always something that makes waiting seem smarter than acting. And before you know it, a year has passed, then 5 years, then 10, and you're still in the same spot, still on the same treadmill, still trading time for money, still trapped, still telling yourself you'll start someday, and someday never comes. That's what happens to 95 out of 100 people. They know what they should do. They understand the trap. They see the path out. But they don't act. They wait. And waiting kills more dreams than failure ever will. Because at least failure means you tried. Waiting means you never even started. So right now I want you to make a decision. Not a wish, not a hope, not a plan. A decision. What are you going to build? What's your one thing? What's the value you're going to create? You don't need to know every detail. You don't need to have it all figured out. You just need to decide what you're starting on. And then you need to decide when your first 1 hour block is. Today? Tomorrow morning? Tomorrow after work? Pick a time. Write it down. Commit to it. That's your decision. That's where it starts. Not with perfect conditions, not with all the answers, with one decision to begin. Let me tell you about the moment I made my decision. I was sitting at my kitchen table. I've been thinking about my automobile for years, dreaming about it, sketching it, talking about it, but not building it. And Clara looked at me and said something I'll never forget. She said, "Henry, you're either going to build this automobile or you're going to still be talking about building it in 10 years. Which man do you want to be?" That question hit me like a hammer, because she was right. I could spend the rest of my life dreaming, or I could start building. Those were my only 2 options, and I realized something in that moment. The pain of trying and failing was nothing compared to the pain of never trying at all. I'd rather fail at building my automobile than succeed at playing it safe. I'd rather go broke trying than stay comfortable wondering what could have been. So I made a decision. That night, I walked out to my shed and I started. No more planning, no more waiting, no more someday. That night. And that decision changed everything. Not because I suddenly had all the answers, but because I finally started moving. And once you start moving, everything changes. Clarity comes from action, not thought. Progress comes from doing, not planning. Success comes from building, not dreaming. But you have to start. You have to make the decision. And you have to do it now. Now I need to tell you something hard. Something most people don't want to hear. You're going to fail multiple times. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to build things that don't work. You're going to waste time on ideas that go nowhere. That's guaranteed. That's part of the process. And if you're waiting to start until you can avoid all of that, you'll never start. Because there's no path to success that doesn't include failure. Listen to me carefully. There is not a single successful person in history who didn't fail. Not one. Every person who built something significant failed their way there. Edison failed thousands of times before the light bulb worked. Every mistake taught him what didn't work. Every failure eliminated one wrong path. Every setback prepared him for the breakthrough. The Wright brothers crashed dozens of times before they flew. Each crash taught them something about aerodynamics, about control, about what worked and what didn't. Rockefeller failed in his first business ventures, lost money, made bad decisions, learned from every single one. Carnegie worked for years making mistakes before he built his steel empire. Each one taught him something he needed to know. Every successful person you've ever heard of has a history of failures you haven't heard about. The failures aren't the opposite of success. They're the rungs on the ladder to success. Each mistake you make is one step up. Each setback is progress. Each failure teaches you something you couldn't learn any other way. You can't skip the failures. You can't avoid the mistakes. They're not obstacles to success. They're the path to success. They're an integral part of building anything real. Without the failures, there is no success. Without the mistakes, there is no learning. Without the setbacks, there is no growth. Every single rung on that ladder matters. You have to climb them all. I failed more in my first few years of building automobiles than most people fail in their entire lives. I built prototypes that didn't work. I used materials that broke. I made design choices that were completely wrong. I wasted money. I wasted time. I looked like a fool. People mocked me. People told me to give up. And they were right to think that, because from the outside it looked like I was failing. But I wasn't failing. I was learning. Each failure taught me something I needed to know. Each mistake eliminated something that didn't work. Each setback made me better. And eventually, all those failures added up to one success. But only because I didn't quit. Only because I kept building through the failures. Only because I understood that every mistake was teaching me something. Every setback was preparing me for what came next. That's how you need to think about failure. Not as something to avoid, as something to learn from. Not as proof you're not good enough, as proof you're building something real. Because if you're not failing, you're not trying hard enough. If you're not making mistakes, you're not pushing yourself. If everything works perfectly, you're playing it too safe. The failures mean you're doing it right. The mistakes mean you're learning. The setbacks mean you're on the path. So don't fear failure. Expect it. Welcome it. Learn from it. And keep building. That's how everyone who succeeded did it. And that's how you'll do it too. So when you start your 1 hour a day, when you start building your thing, don't expect it to work right away. Expect it to be hard. Expect to make mistakes. Expect to feel like you don't know what you're doing. Because you don't. Not yet. But you will. The only way to learn is by doing. The only way to get good is by being bad first. The only way to succeed is by failing until you figure it out. And that's okay. That's normal. That's how it works for everyone. The difference between people who succeed and people who don't isn't that successful people avoid failure. It's that they don't quit when they fail. They keep going. They adjust. They learn. They try again and again and again until eventually it works. That's the process. And if you can accept that process, if you can embrace that failure is part of building, then nothing can stop you. But if you need everything to work perfectly, if you need to avoid all mistakes, if you need to feel confident before you start, you'll never build anything. Because confidence doesn't come before action, it comes after. You build confidence by doing the thing, by failing, by learning, by trying again, by slowly getting better. That's how it works. That's the only way it works. So start, fail, learn, adjust, try again. That's the formula. That's the path. That's how you break out of the trap. Now let me show you what happens when you actually do this. When you protect your 1 hour every day. When you build consistently. When you don't quit. At first, you see nothing. No results, no money, no progress, just effort going into what feels like a void. Week 1, nothing. Week 2, nothing. Month 1, still nothing visible. And this is where most people quit. They look at all the work they've put in and they see no return. So they stop. They go back to their job, back to safety, back to the trap. But here's what they don't understand. They quit right before the compound effect kicks in. They quit during the hardest part. They quit right before things start to work. Because here's how building actually works. You put in effort, lots of effort, and for a long time you see no results. The effort goes in, nothing comes out. It feels like you're pushing a boulder up a mountain. Every day you push, and every day the boulder barely moves. For months you're pushing, and nothing seems to be happening. But something is happening. You're learning, you're improving, you're building skills, you're making connections, you're figuring out what works and what doesn't. All of that is invisible, but it's real. It's accumulating, and at some point, usually when you least expect it, something shifts. The boulder reaches the top of the mountain, and suddenly it starts rolling downhill. And now, instead of pushing it, you're chasing it. Instead of forcing progress, progress is happening on its own. That's the compound effect, and it happens to everyone who doesn't quit, but only to people who don't quit. Let me tell you exactly what this looked like for me. At first, I had nothing, just drawings and failed prototypes. Nothing I could sell, nothing I could show, nothing that worked. I was still figuring things out, more failures, more lessons. But I was learning. Then I finally built something that ran. It wasn't perfect, but it worked. And that's when things started moving faster. I started my company, built cars, sold them, refined the process. And then I built the Model T, and everything exploded. Suddenly, everyone wanted one. Suddenly, I couldn't build them fast enough. Suddenly, the company went from small to massive. But here's the key. That explosion only happened because of the time before it. The failures, the learning, the building of skills and knowledge and systems. Those early months looked like nothing was happening, but everything was happening. I was learning how to manufacture, how to price, how to market, how to manage, how to scale. And when the Model T came out, I knew how to do all of those things, so it succeeded. Not because I got lucky, but because I'd spent time preparing for that moment. Now imagine if I'd quit early on. I'd have nothing. All that work would have been for nothing. I'd have gone back to working for Edison, or found another job. And I'd have spent the rest of my life wondering what could have been. But I didn't quit. I kept building. Even when it looked like nothing was working. Even when people said I was wasting my time. Even when I wasn't sure it would ever pay off. I kept building. And eventually, it paid off. Not a little, a lot. More than I ever imagined, but only because I stayed long enough to see it. That's what compound interest looks like. Months of input with no visible output, and then suddenly, everything pays off at once. And people who didn't see the work think you got lucky. They think it happened overnight. They don't understand that big success takes time. They don't see the compound effect. They just see the result. But you need to understand the process, because you're about to go through it. You're about to put in months of work with no visible results, and you're going to want to quit. And when that moment comes, I want you to remember this. The compound effect is real, but it only works if you stay long enough to see it. And most people quit right before it kicks in. Don't be most people. Keep building. Keep working your 1 hour. Keep marking your X's on the calendar. Keep pushing that boulder up the mountain, because eventually it reaches the top. And when it does, everything changes. Now I want to talk about something that scares most people: security. Everyone wants security. Everyone wants to feel safe. Everyone wants to know where their next paycheck is coming from. And that's why most people stay at jobs they hate, stay in situations that trap them, stay on the treadmill, Because it feels secure. You know exactly when you'll get paid. You know exactly how much. You know you can pay your bills. That feels safe. But here's what nobody tells you. That security is an illusion. You think you're secure because you have a steady paycheck, but you're not. Your job could disappear tomorrow. Company restructures. You're gone. Economy crashes. You're gone. Technology changes. You're gone. New boss comes in and doesn't like you. You're gone. You're counting on someone else to keep paying you. Someone who has no obligation to do so. Someone who will stop paying you the second it benefits them. That's not security, that's dependence. And dependence is the opposite of security. Real security is owning something, building something, creating something that can't be taken away from you, a skill that people will always pay for, a business that generates income without you, an asset that produces value. That's security. Because nobody can fire you from your own business. Nobody can eliminate your own skills. Nobody can take away what you built. That's real security. And the only way to get it is to build it yourself. Let me tell you what real security looks like. When I built my company, I didn't have a steady paycheck anymore. Some months I made nothing. Some months I lost money. It was uncertain. It was risky. It was the opposite of secure. But I was building something. And every month I built, that thing got stronger, more stable, more valuable. And eventually that thing was more secure than any job could ever be. Because I owned it. I controlled it. I built it. And nobody could take it away from me. Compare that to a job. You can work somewhere for 20 years and lose it in one day. One decision by someone you've never met, one change in strategy, one bad quarter, and you're gone. 20 years of loyalty means nothing. 20 years of hard work means nothing. 20 years of showing up means nothing. Because you never owned anything. You just traded time for money. And when they don't want to trade anymore, you have nothing. So which is more secure? Trading time for money and hoping they keep paying you? Or building something you own that generates value regardless of what anyone else decides? The answer is obvious. Building your own thing is more secure. It just doesn't feel that way at first. Because at first it's uncertain, it's risky, it's scary. But that fear is temporary. The security you build is permanent. The fear of a job ending is always there, because you know it could end any time, you just don't think about it. Until it happens. Then you realize you were never secure at all. You were just comfortable. And comfortable isn't the same as secure. So stop chasing security in a paycheck. Start building security through ownership. Stop trying to feel safe. Start building something that makes you actually safe. Stop depending on someone else to take care of you. Start taking care of yourself. That's the shift. From dependence to ownership. From employee to builder. From trapped to free. And it starts with protecting your 1 hour. Building your thing. Creating value you own every day. Without exception. For as long as it takes. That's real security. And once you have it, once you've built something that's yours, you'll wonder how you ever felt secure working for someone else. You'll wonder how you ever trusted your entire future to someone who could take it away in one meeting. You'll wonder how you ever confused dependence with security. But you won't wonder for long, because you'll be too busy building, too busy creating, too busy being free. And that feeling of owning your time, owning your value, owning your future, is worth more than any paycheck, more than any benefit package, more than any title, more than anything a job could ever give you. That feeling is freedom. And freedom is what you're actually after. Not money, not success. Freedom. The ability to do what you want, when you want, with who you want, for as long as you want. That's the goal. And you can't get there by selling your time. You can only get there by building value. So start building. I've told you everything you need to know. I've shown you the trap. I've shown you the calculations. I've shown you how they keep you dependent, how they keep you trapped, how they keep you working until 65 with nothing. And I've shown you the way out. Protect 1 hour every day. Build something you own. Live below your means. Cut your expenses. Create your freedom number. Start before you're ready. Fail forward. Don't quit. Let the compound effect work. Build real security through ownership. That's the formula. That's the path. That's how you break free. And here's what's important. You don't have to quit your job to do this. You keep your job. You keep your steady income. You keep your benefits. But you also protect 1 hour every day to build something of your own. That's the key. You're not choosing between safety and risk. You're choosing to do both. Work your job during the day. Build your future during that 1 hour. And over time, as your thing grows, as it starts making money, as it becomes more stable, then you can think about leaving. But not before. Not until your thing is ready. You build your escape while you're still inside the cage. That's the smart way. That's the safe way. That's how you reduce risk while creating opportunity. Now you have a choice to make. You can go to work tomorrow and do nothing different. Keep selling your time. Keep running on the treadmill. Keep building someone else's wealth while yours stays at zero. Keep telling yourself you'll start someday. Keep waiting for perfect. Keep playing it safe. And in 40 years you'll retire broke. You'll look back and wonder what happened. Wonder where the time went. Wonder why you never took the chance. That's option 1. Or you can decide right now, today, this moment, that you're done with just accepting the trap. You're going to keep your job, yes, but you're also going to protect your 1 hour starting tomorrow. You're going to start building something on the side, something you own. You're going to cut your expenses and create room to build. You're going to fail forward. You're going to stay long enough to see the compound effect. You're going to build real security while keeping your current income. That's option 2. Those are your only 2 options, and you need to choose. Right now. Not tomorrow. Right now. So, most people will choose option 1. They'll listen to this. They'll nod. They'll agree with everything I said, and they'll do nothing. They'll go back to just working their job, just trading time for money, just building someone else's wealth. And that's fine, but you're different. Something inside you knows there's more, knows you're capable of more, knows you were meant to build something. That's why you're still listening. That's why you've made it this far. That's why this message resonates with you. You're not content with just comfortable. You're not satisfied with just safe. You're not willing to work until 65 with nothing. You want more. You deserve more, and you're capable of more. But wanting it isn't enough. Understanding the trap isn't enough. You have to act. You have to choose option 2. You have to commit to protecting your 1 hour while keeping your job. You have to commit to building something on the side. You have to commit to staying long enough to see it work. And you have to commit right now. Okay, so here's what I want you to do. The moment this ends, I want you to take out a piece of paper. Write down 3 things. First, your freedom number. Income minus expenses. How much room do you have to build? Second, your one thing. What are you going to build on the side? What value are you going to create in that 1 hour? What's your project? Third, your first 1 hour block. When is it? Tomorrow morning before work? Tomorrow evening after work? When? Write it down. Commit to it. And then do it. Show up for that 1 hour. Start building. And don't stop. Keep your job. Keep your income. Keep your benefits. but also keep that 1 hour sacred. Mark your X on the calendar. Protect that hour tomorrow, and the next day, and the next day. For 6 months, for a year, for however long it takes. Don't quit your job until your side thing is ready. But don't quit your side thing ever. Just keep building, 1 hour at a time, 1 day at a time. And eventually, that side thing becomes your main thing. That 1 hour becomes your future. That project becomes your freedom. Listen to this every single day. Let it remind you why you're protecting that hour, why you're building, why you can't give up. This is your roadmap, your guide to breaking free from the trap. Start building today.